The act of comparing ourselves to other people has always had the potential to have a devastating impact on our sense of confidence. But studies now show that that constant comparison for users of social media is having a lasting and damaging effect on self-esteem and overall confidence. Up until now, if you've had the self-awareness to appreciate that the use of social media is having an impact on your confidence, you've had basically two choices: live with it and deal with that impact, or go cold turkey and stop engaging with the platforms altogether. Well, today I'm going to go over a 3-step strategy to help you still engage with social media, but to protect your self-esteem and your confidence. The comparison culture that is now pretty mainstream in terms of how we engage with social media is having a damaging effect. And I want to make sure that you have the tools that you need so that you can still engage with the platforms, whatever it is for you, whether you enjoy being on Facebook or on X, whether you engage with Instagram, whatever the platforms are of your choosing, make sure that you have the tools you need so that they're not having a negative impact on you. You may recognize this in yourself already, that when you go and you spend half an hour browsing, that suddenly you come away from it feeling more deflated. I know a lot of the conversations that I've been having with people in recent years have resonated with that fact, going, oh, I go on there and I go on there to connect with people in my life, or maybe I go on there to promote my business, whatever it is, but I come away feeling like I am lesser for it. And there are some ways that we can actually build up our sense of self, our sense of confidence, and our self-esteem to protect ourselves from that negative impact. Up till now, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of people have just gone, well, I guess I just stop. I guess I'll just go cold turkey and not be a part of the social media world. And for some people, that makes a lot of sense. But for other people, that's not going to be the answer. You may be going on social media in order to connect with people who you don't get to see in real life, or connect with people who you are meeting for the first time on the internet. Or maybe for you, it has to do with your work. There's lots of reasons why it may be very important for you to continue being a player on social media. So here's what we need to do. It's a 3-step process, and I want you to take notes here. This is important. You need to be engaging with these steps every day if this is a problem for you. And maybe it's not a problem for you. Maybe it's a problem for someone that you know and you love and you care about, and you can see how these social media platforms are having a negative impact on their self-esteem, on their confidence. So here's what we're going to do. Step 1 is what I call zoom out. So this is when you are browsing through and you're scrolling and you engage with a picture that someone has taken. Maybe it's someone you know, maybe it's someone you don't know, maybe it's a celebrity, but for some reason that picture has had an impact on you, and suddenly you're viewing their life in comparison with your life, and it is making you call into question the choices you've made, or the things that you're doing on the day-to-day basis, or the dreams or the goals that you have, or the near misses, the missed opportunities, the failures that you've experienced. This one picture has suddenly triggered all of these pretty intense emotions in you. This may be something that you recognize. As I'm saying this, you may be going, yes, that is something I experience. Well, if that's the case, you need to do this first step, which is zoom out. And what this is imagining what is happening outside the frames of that picture, taking into context everything that is around that picture that is not in frame. Now, what I am not saying here is that we suddenly go, oh yeah, but they're not really as happy as that, or oh yeah, but their life isn't really as good as that. I'm not talking about putting people down, and that's really important to understand the distinction here. So we don't combat that comparison culture. We don't combat the negative impact that social media has on our self-esteem and our confidence by trying to put other people down. That's not what we're doing here. By zooming out, you're taking into appreciation what else is happening in that picture, the other conversations that happened before that picture was snapped. What else is there? Because when we do that, we can associate it more closely with our own life because we know the greater context of our life. We know that when we take a picture, it is merely a snapshot of a bigger picture of everything else that is going on. That argument that we had with our mum earlier in the day, or that disagreement we had with our spouse, or maybe that really wonderful moment at work when we finally felt validated for a job well done. All of the things that go on in our life, all of the rich tapestry that make up our life, we know that when we take a picture, it isn't representing all of those things. Well, we need to do the same exercise. We need to appreciate that in the pictures that we receive, that we are looking at when we do that browsing, when we do that scrolling, and we come across a picture. Before you let it have that impact in your gut that, oh, my life is not as good as that. I wish I had that. Zoom out and imagine what is going on outside the frame of that picture, just to give you the bigger context. I repeat, this is not about trying to find faults in other people's lives. That's not going to, in the end, make you feel any better. But what you need to do is understand that there is more to everybody's story, and you're only getting a small glimpse into that. Step 2 in this method is what I call validation. And this is about validating the thoughts that do come up when you are engaging in social media. Those thoughts that are contributing to potentially a lower sense of self-esteem, or that are having a damaging effect on your confidence. What are the thoughts that are coming up? And I want you to give weight to them. So often when we have negative thoughts, we push them away. We try to ignore them. We try to distract ourselves from that negativity. And actually, we need to give space to that. We need to validate it. We need to understand what the context of that thought is. We need to understand what the parameters of that thought are. So if that is something that's happening to you, you're engaging in your favorite social media platform and you have that thought about a comparison that you're making with someone else that is presenting a success or presenting an achievement, or that is just showing you a glimpse into their quote unquote perfect life, and you have a thought of you are lesser, you are not as good, you are not doing as well as you should be, or I wish I was doing as well as that. Whatever the thought is, validate those feelings. Acknowledge that you've had that thought. Don't try and push it away. When I say validate, what I mean is have that conversation with yourself. Say, I've just had this thought. I really feel that this person is doing better in their life than me. What's with that? Why am I feeling that? What here in this picture or in this comment or in this post has triggered that thought for me? And then allow for that thought. Go, okay, I accept that that's where I'm at right now, that post has triggered this feeling in me, and I validate that thought. I have come to that thought honestly, and it is a part of who I am and where I'm at. Now, there's a part 2 to this validating process. And the part 2 is to make sure that you are also validating your feelings outside of your engagement with social media. This is really crucial. And if you are interested in doing more of this process of validation, then do check out the journaling video that I have on the channel. You can find it here or just hit this link, because that is going to show you a little bit more about how you can really go in depth in validating your feelings and your experiences and how crucial it actually is. But for the purpose of this step, all you really need to do is understand and vocalize to yourself what the thought is, what it is that post has triggered, and outside of the context of social media, what you're experiencing in your day-to-day life, and going, that's okay, that is valid. I don't need to push that away. I don't even need to change that. I may need to move forward through it. So for example, if you are engaging with social media and a post comes up and you automatically think, my life's not as good as theirs. Well, that might be a passing thought that you get really quickly and you move on to the next thing. You need to learn how to pause there on that thought and go, whoa, I just felt that. That's big. That's important. And I need to give weight to that. And by doing that, you're allowing the presence of those thoughts. And by allowing the presence of those thoughts, you can begin to unlock them and begin to explore why you're having those thoughts in the first place. And often what happens at this stage is you can kind of talk yourself through, well, actually, there are some good things going on in my life. This is what I've got. And you kind of dive into a gratitude session, or you dive into an appreciation of what there is on the other side. By validating your thought, you are allowing that your thought is important, and that it's not one that can just be dismissed, and that it's come up for a reason. And when you validate it, then it's important to continue to explore that reason, the reason behind that thought. So that's step 2 in this process, is the validation. And remember, it's not just validating the thoughts that come up when you're engaging in social media, but get into the habit of doing this outside of the social media context. Step 3 in this combating the comparison culture that we have going on right now in the social media age is actually something that you're going to want to do outside of your time when you're on social media. And it's something that you can do every day. And it is about accepting and celebrating your strengths. Now, this is a practice that I use in so many different contexts. This is not just reserved for this comparison culture. And this is something that we use to build up resilience, even to increase motivation. This is something that we use in so many areas of self-awareness and developing your best self. So in order to celebrate your strengths, you need to start listing them out. And when I work with my one-to-one clients, this is something that we dive deep into on a regular basis, of listing out what your strengths actually are, what your strengths are now. How often are you writing out what your best qualities are and what your strengths are, the things you bring to the table? Now, I'm not talking about your talents and your skills. Of course, that's important to recognize as well. But what we're not doing right here is creating like a resume. What we're doing is going deep into what you have to bring to the world. This is about building your sense of self-worth. Build out your list of strengths. And I would say to do this to begin with every day for a week. I cannot stress enough the powerful impact that this exercise will have on your overall confidence. Because if you are aware of your strengths, if you understand what they are, then the knocks that you get when you start comparing yourself to other people will start to diminish, because the strengths will be at the forefront of your mind. Make a list of what your key strengths are. I always start with 3. Write down your key 3 strengths every day. Now, they may be the same strengths that you think of every day, but challenge yourself to think of new and different ones, because I guarantee there are more strengths that you have than just the 3. But if you can only recall the same 3 every day for a week, still write them down. They're obviously really important strengths if those are the ones that you're reaching to, and flesh them out. What does this strength mean for you? What does it mean for the other people in your life? How has it helped you? And how often do you use that strength? By being in a place where we can reflect very easily on what those strengths are, it means that they kind of create this protective armor around us, so that when we feel a knock, when we begin to compare ourselves to someone else, when we get a blow or a missed opportunity or a quote unquote failure, we have those strengths there to fall upon, and they will help build us up again. When you have gotten to a place where you have keyed in on a regular basis to your strengths, they won't necessarily come to mind, but they'll be there working for you. So that when you are engaging with social media, when you're on your platforms and you do that browsing and you come across a post that previously would have had this negative impact on your self-esteem, would have made you call into question components of your life or choices that you've made, you'll have those strengths working to counterbalance that. You'll also have the validation of those feelings, and you will have also zoomed out to remember that there's so much going on outside the context of that single picture. So those are the 3 steps that I want you to play around with, that I want you to engage in, and that I want you to follow if you are struggling with that comparison that happens for so many of us when we engage with social media. Combat this comparison culture, starting with these 3 steps. If you found this video helpful, if it's brought something to you, if it's made you think about how you engage with the world or developed a little piece of the puzzle for you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and also check out the links in the description box below. I've put a bunch of free resources so that you can dive a bit deeper into any of the subjects that I discuss on the channel. I'll see you again real soon.